Katie Wu basically pushes back on this idea through her own reporting that the Cardinals have engaged in any kind of serious trade conversations with Soto. She differentiates, and this is the key thing. She differentiates between speculation and actually what has happened so far. She repeats, as she should, that other team executives around baseball think the Cardinals have what it takes to make a deal because they have so many really, really good, if not great, position player prospects. And that they are one of the few teams in baseball that possess the kind of depth it would take to land them. And they also have not just the prospects that are not in the majors yet, like the Jordan Walkers and the Mason Winns and Alec Burleson and whoever you want to add to that. But they have young players on the roster, the major league roster right now, that could be trade pieces because the Nationals are said to want guys that are already in the majors who are young and who are cost controlled. So they have a collection of those guys too. But check this out. Let me get to the part where she talks about what the trade. She was talking to some people and her sense of what they would want, the Nationals. She wrote, quote, "The Nationals will not settle on anything less than a major haul, one that is sure to include at least one and likely two top prospects, plus promising young players under team control for a substantial time, and that have also already begun to prove their capabilities at the big league level." She says trading for an organization's top two prospects, such as Jordan Walker and Mason Winn, seems to be the bare minimum in which Washington will ask for. And it's believed that the current rostered player the Nationals would covet the most is 23-year-old outfielder Dylan Carlson, who isn't arbitration eligible until 2024, and he's not a free agent, eligible for free agency until 2027. That's just the starting price, she writes. It's possible Walker, Winn, and Carlson – no, she said, pardon me. It's doubtful that Walker, Winn, and Carlson would be enough to acquire Soto, so expect the Nationals to also check in on alluring pitching farmhands like Matthew Libator, Michael McGreevy, Gordon Graceffo. And she says that St. Louis also has a trio of rookies, Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, and Juan Yepez, who are sure to pique some interest. That's a lot of talent being bandied about there, And that's why, Jim Hewer, I still find it very difficult to believe that the Cardinals, especially since they're going to have to all but rebuild their starting rotation, not just for this year either. I find it very hard to believe that they would make an aggressive trade like this for a player who would help them offensively. Sure, he's a great player. He's a foundational player. He's a generational player. I get it. But he's also a player that would all but certainly would only be in St. Louis through 2024. So why would you give up all of that for a short-term boost? I don't get it. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. If I knew the Cardinals could get him extended, and let's start with $500 million and go up, $550 million, $600 million. It's going to set a record. It's going to shatter the existing standards for the biggest contract ever in Major League Baseball. It's going to destroy the previous standard for that. So if you think Bill DeWitt's going to do that, he's going to give him $500 million, $550, $600 million. I don't know. I'd feel better about a trade like that. I mean, like I said a million times, I don't care if they trade for him or not. I'll just enjoy the baseball. But if we're talking about it in a practical sense, I don't see Bill DeWitt emptying out his farm system, plus giving up a pretty good young outfielder. And I know it's fashionable in St. Louis to act like, Dylan Carlson is now like John Gall or something. I realize that. Because if he has a couple bad games, then he's like, this guy should be in Double-A, Anyway, I find it hard to believe Bill DeWitt would sign off on a trade that empties out the very best of his farm system and takes a cross-controlled, talented young outfielder out of his outfield and even add in some other goodies. Oh, then try to get Soto signed to a deal that would cost him $500 million or higher. I don't see Bill DeWitt as being that kind of guy. If some of you have had dreams and you see this in your dreams, well, good for you. I just don't see it.
Look, you mentioned the names you just threw out there. And in the first part of that, if they came to me and said 3 of those guys and I need something else, I hang up. That's what I mean. I could not see the card, even for Juan Soto. I would hang up because you just can't keep throwing guys who are talented with that kind of talent and just move them on to get one piece when you need a lot more pieces than just one. I really, and the other side of that is figuring in, as you kind of said, Bernie, the way the Cardinals go about their business, they can't afford to just start going out and buying guys.
No.
What do we need?
They cannot, my friend.
Throw that money. Yeah, we'll throw that money out there. I mean,
we'll take on the Patrick Corbin contract.
Yeah, you throw that in there, and then Arenado and Goldie are still getting paid. They're not just going to start rolling. Hey, we'll take that contract. We need pitching. Well, let's just go buy the highest paid guy on the market next year. We're good. I don't care. That's not how they do business. And the reality is, unless you're the Yankees or the Dodgers, no franchise in baseball can afford to go about doing business that way because not every one of those moves works. And free agency, looking past history, that's the way it is. I mean, that's proven in free agency. You can go out and buy the highest priced guys. Doesn't always work in your favor. I'll throw out just a name, and he's been a very, very good player. Bryce Harper hasn't won the Phillies anything.
Yeah.
And he's a great player when he's healthy. And he's hurt right now, and they're nowhere near being a World Series winner right now with him. You have to have all the other moving parts to go with it if you really.
Yeah, they haven't been in the playoffs with him yet, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I think some of the people that are having these Soto fantasies just conveniently overlook, I agree with them that he is a generational talent and he is a foundational talent. I absolutely agree with that. But, Albert, and people will say, and I agree with this too, that he is, in terms of a generational talent, this is the next Albert Pujols. This would be the next Albert Pujols if they can get him. Well, number one, I agree with that in theory, but number one, Albert Pujols stayed here 11 years. There's a big hell of a difference between if you're saying, but hey, he's the next generational talent since Pujols for the Cardinals. He's the biggest generational foundational piece since Pujols. You can't ignore that. He's the next Pujols. Is he the next Pujols if he leaves after 2024? Mm-hmm. Albert was here 11 years. Why in the world are otherwise intelligent people so absurdly disconnected from reality when they start making these claims? And I've seen it all over the place. Oh, you can't turn down a chance to get a generational player like this. Well, actually, yeah, I can, because he's a Scott Boras client who's going to go to free agency at the end of 2024. That's not Albert Pujols, who had the 11 incredible years to start his career here. And the Cardinals did give him, and people forget about this, they gave him like a $100 million contract, maybe a little more than that. They signed him early to extend him so he would be here that long. And that contract didn't expire, obviously, until after the 2011 season. So, number one, it's not a match. It's not a direct comparison because one guy was here for 11 years. The other guy will be here through 2024, and it is an incredible long shot to believe you'd be able to keep him with Boras as the agent and with Soto, who's an ambitious guy, knowing he will shatter every existing record for the highest contract ever. That's number one. The other thing, now, people have to understand the context of what I'm saying, and please, I ask you, because I don't have anything prepared on this. I'm just sort of winging it. As great as Albert Pujols was as a Cardinal, I mean, he was, look, I don't even have to say that. What about the people on the team around him? You had Jimmy Edmonds. You had Scott Rowland. You had, help me out here, I'm trying to think.
A young Adam Wainwright on the pitching staff.
A young Adam Wainwright. You had Chris Carpenter at his peak.
Yadier Molina.
You had Yadier Molina, a future Hall of Fame catcher. You had he would go with committees at shortstop or second base, so you sort of had a revolving cast.
Holiday showed up.
Matt Holliday was here. Thank you. And that's what I mean. I didn't work this up in advance. You had really good relievers. I mean, you had all kinds of players, all kinds of talent. You had so many all-star type players. I mean, Ryan Ludwig was an all-star, a legitimate guy, 37 home runs, 100-plus RBIs one year. Pujols had really good talent around him, and you never doubted the way the Cardinals put a pitching staff together. It was a different time. It's not as easy anymore, and I think that's one of the problems the Cardinals are having, thinking you can have a great rotation or a really good one just by getting them to throw ground balls. I don't think that that's the case. You need a little more strikeout punch. Well, my point is, with Dave Duncan and Tony La Russa, they could always cobble together a rotation that was really, really good. But that was also before everybody threw 100 miles an hour. That was before the advent of the new way of pitching. I don't know that it would be as easy to do that now. But the point is, they could take a Jeff Suppan and make him better. They could take a Jeff Weaver and make him a lot better. I could name many, many other starters. They could take Kyle Loesch and make him a lot better. I mean, on and on and on. There's a bunch of examples. That type of thing's really not as prevalent now. And the thing of it is they would have franchise-type pieces around Soto the way they had it against Pujols. I don't think they would have as many, and that's especially true if Nolan Arenado opts out. And this pitching staff, starting rotation, is almost looking like a have-to-start-over type of thing a year from now, or maybe if you're lucky, maybe 2 years from now. So it's not this perfect match, this comparison between Albert and Soto. It's just not the perfect match in terms of the comparison, not the players. I'm talking about the comparison. I think people overlook a lot of things. Most of all, one guy was here 11 years. There is extremely doubtful possibility that Soto would spend 10 years as a Cardinal. I mean, that's all I'm trying to say. It's not the same.
Oh, it's 100% accurate. He's going to market because he wants the biggest contract he can possibly get to set the record, and part of that is coming from his agent, who we know that's his job. That's with every player he's got like that. It was, hey, I got to get the biggest contract for my past clients every time. That's what comes up. Okay, how can I make it bigger? How can I make this one bigger? Who's next? How can I make that one bigger? That's how it works. That's how his game is played. And Cardinals, they're not in that position to spend that kind of money. They're just not. It's also not the way they do business. So why put yourself in that situation for the letdown of, well, he's gone in 2 years, regardless. And remember all those players you gave up? They're contributing elsewhere, and you got nothing. You're sitting there empty-handed.
And I just really don't understand the people that, kind of think, well, even if he's here only through 2024, that's okay. I don't care. Well, you should care. I mean, you should.
Yeah, you should.
Because I think it actually does matter. I don't know, man. It's a fun discussion. And you know what? I'll say this: I shouldn't get as irritated as I do. I just don't like this sort of the no pun intended, the house of cards that people sort of build their case to get Soto. They use a house of cards, and they're just putting stuff on top of that house of cards, and it's like, well, wait a minute, you all don't know, you all don't sort of know what's going to happen here, because they just want it so bad. They ignore the Boris factor. They ignore what Soto wants. They ignore some other roster realities that are really undermining the Cardinals. They're ignoring the entire history of spending in St. Louis by Bill DeWitt, and Bill DeWitt's had a lot of success. Contrary to growing belief, he actually does know what he's doing, because when you're one of the 2 or 3 best teams in baseball over a 22-year period, you know what you're doing. It's just may not be doing it the way you want at this time. And Bill DeWitt will go for star players, but it's always going to be on his terms. And that's just the way he operates. Now, I did defend it just now, but my point is it doesn't matter what I think. This is the way he's always done it, and they've been incredibly consistent and successful. So what is it that now makes you think he's just going to throw everything to the wind and just say, we're doing whatever it takes, let's go for it? When did you all think that Bill DeWitt became Artie Moreno? Can you take me back to that point where you determined in your imagination that Bill DeWitt's going to be a gunslinger like Artie Moreno? Let's go sign him, boys. What? Seriously, what gives you that impression? What? And don't bring up Arenado and Goldschmidt, because I'm going to keep telling you, entirely different situations. They didn't give up one player in either one of those two trades that came back to haunt them because they knew it wouldn't come back to haunt them. I mean, the best player they gave up was Carson Kelly, but they had a guy named Molina who was going to be here a long time, which he still is. And Carson Kelly's his career's sort of gotten sidetracked by injuries anyway. So, no, don't tell me about Arenado and Goldschmidt when you're trying to make a case for Soto. It's just those two things have nothing to do with this. The Rockies gave him to the Cardinals. They even paid for some of the money. And the Cardinals made I thought it was a good trade for both sides, but as it turned out, Arizona didn't get that much for him. But in no way, shape, or form, anything the Cardinals gave up at that time was going to hurt them going forward. So that's not the case now in the quality of the people you'd have to give up. So I just don't know, man. By the way, real quick, and since we're talking about this, and I feel like talking about it a little bit, all right, here are some of his teammates Pujols had when we talk about surrounding him with talent. Right, Jim Edmonds, Scott Rowland, Matt Holliday, J.D. Drew, his first 3 seasons. J.D. Drew was a hell of a player. The young Chris Duncan, who was a lot better than people thought. I'm talking about the first 2 or 3 years of his career. Go look at what he did in 2006, by the way. Yadier Molina. You had Edgar Renteria through 2004, right?
Yep, forgot about him.
Hell of a player. Reggie Sanders, really good player. Colby Rasmus, final 2.5 years, but I'm just putting names out there. Hey, he had Lance Berkman in 2011, one of the great pickups ever by John Mozeliak. Larry Walker for a while. Mike Matheny behind the plate. That's before Molina took over. You had some Ray Langford. You had some So Taguchi. You had Scott Spezia, who saved the 2006 season. You had Alan Craig for his prime years as a Cardinal. You had David Freese, who was good for about 2 or 3 years, and we always will remember 2011, that postseason. He was teammates, I'm talking about Pujols, with Fernando Vina and David Eckstein. And let me go down the list. Look, I already proved the point.
Yep, there's a lot there.
They had a lot of talent there. So, and the Cardinals would be the Cardinals have a lot of talent on the way, but it's cost control talent that they can benefit from. So, I don't know. I'm just sort of throwing things out there for everyone's consideration. Not that will matter, and that's also okay too. Hey, what's the counterpoint, though? Is anything like on the text message line?
There's a couple different ones, but I can get one in here that's asked, would they make a play for Soto to keep the heat off the current events of the roster that the front office is making missteps?
No. Not for that cost. They're not going to pay that kind of thing just as a distraction. No. They're not going to empty out their top 3 or 4 prospects plus Dylan Carlson just because they would like to take some heat off of them. Since when has Bill DeWitt ever look, despite all the winning, they have heat on them all the time. So when has Bill DeWitt ever just said, "Oh, I can't take this anymore. Let's make a big stupid trade just to throw everybody off our track, get them off our back"? That's not it. That's not the way he works.
One other one here. Is the system broken if there's only 2 or 3 teams that can afford to keep those players, and the Cardinals can only get the prime years of a generational player if that's only in their first 6 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, there's a point to be made about how many teams would have access to Soto. It's not a lot, maybe 5 or 6 right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not a lot.
No, it's not.
So that's a good point. I think the Cardinals would like to develop their own generational players, and you know what? They've done that, and they've always added to it. But it was a lot easier to get Scott Rowland back in the day, or Larry Walker back in the day, or Jim Edmonds back in the day. It was just a different time and place in baseball. And again, it's really hard to compare the ease of getting those kind of players in here on trades compared to what you would have to give up for them, or the equivalent of them now, you know, because teams hold on to players now. They try to re-sign their own guys. And if they move them, they're looking to clean up. It's not going to be a salary dump. I mean, it can be, but they also expect something in return.